Welcome to Weird Games and Weirder People, a podcast about role-playing games and the weird, wonderful people behind them.
Hello, wonderful weirdos. This is Diogo Nogueira, and today's guest is the wonderful Justin Sirois. He is a novelist and game designer, as well as the founder of several books and now several toys. But before I get to that, I have a few announcements. I am traveling actually this week, so it might be the only episode this week because I'll be on Game On Expo from March 15th to 17th. I'll be doing panels, hanging out, so if you want to talk weird, look me up. I'll also be on next week on GaryCon on Lake Geneva from March 23rd to 25th. So I'll also be there, just hanging out. I won't be doing any panels or anything. So look me up, let's play something, talk weird, etc. But talking now about Justin Sirois, several books, publishes fiction, games, accessories, RPG modules. He has been doing this since 2012. He published a lot of stuff, and I want to be like him when I grow up. He does so much stuff. Collaborations include Stockholm Kartell, Aaron Draplin, the Dead Milkmen, Andrew Ervin, Loppers, so many great people. And we talk about how he is the funny dad. We talk about his journey, writing, poetry, fiction, how we can explore the media of role-playing games. We talk about The Spine of the Night, this amazing animation, and how he is working with the creators of it to adapt and create things for role-playing games. We talk about Morkborg, action figures for Morkborg. He's working on several toys, which is incredible. We talk about cooking, which is kind of his hobby. It was weird, we got personal, it was wonderful. So I hope you enjoy it as much as we did. So let's get weird with Justin Sirois. Hello Justin, welcome to Weird Games and Weirder People. How are you, my friend?
I am good and honored to be here.
Yeah, I'm honored to have you here. I think we've been, talking and in touch in this RPG world for a long while, right? I think we were both kind of starting. You had the Mimic Dungeon. It was Labyrinth. Was it or no? What was the name of that one?
Oh gosh, well, the very first Kickstarter that I did, the Dungeon Dealer card deck. Gosh, that would have been like 2016, maybe. I think.
Yeah, I think I met you a little bit after that. Was the dungeon that had everything was kind of this mimic kind of vibe. Was a thick hard book, mega dungeon.
Oh, Beneath.
Yeah, Beneath that
Yes.
one. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah,
Yes.
that man. So I just adapted that from Morkborg, and that took a long time to get through that
Yeah.
whole thing. My gosh.
How was revisiting one of your early works and adapting to a game that's probably released kind of recently too, like it's kind of a how was did you keep it very faithful to the original, or did you saw the need to revise anything, or did you add anything new? How was it?
That's a good question. There was one table that really needed revision, and it was an important one. So that one got completely revised. But otherwise, I didn't touch too much. Like my style is pretty minimal. So I feel like the GM and the players bring a lot to the table when they interpret the adventure. So I didn't feel like it needed that much revision. And then like I've had subsequent adventures that tie into that Beneath book, that world.
Mhm.
So I couldn't change it too much because it would alter the other adventures as well. So I didn't want to change it too much.
Yeah,
It was really it was fun to go back to it. Absolutely.
Yeah. And for the wonderful weirdos out there that maybe don't know who Justin Sirois is, can you tell us a little bit who you are, what is that you do, and share a small weird detail about yourself, maybe a habit or something, the
Sure.
way you choose things? I don't know.
Yeah. So I'm Justin Sirois. I own Severed Books and now Severed Toys, which will be launching soon. Um, I have like 20 years experience in publishing. I owned a poetry like publishing press for like 10 years before Severed Books, doing like really esoteric avant-garde poetry stuff in both New York and DC and Baltimore. And then I got into fiction for a long time. I wrote like 7 novels, really in a very short period of time. I wrote just all the time, not all day, but as much as I could, writing just prose. And then when my first son was born, I just made the switch to creating games. Like I always wanted to be in that space, and I met the right people, the right mentors, and um, just tried it out, and it seems to be working. Question mark.
Hmm.
uh, but so, in short, 20 years of experience. I feel like I'm finally sort of like taking all that stuff that I've learned over the years, the drawing, the graphic design, the narrative prose writing, character development, tension building, um, and then my uh, publication experience in manufacturing. Finally, like kind of getting to use every single one of those tools all together for the 2 businesses that I own. And I can't pretend to do any one of those things extremely well, but I think that together in a gestalt kind of way, I do bring something unique to the table because I have a lot of tricks that I can pull out and combine together to create something either novel or different or just something that never ever would be on the planet otherwise. So
Yeah, it's something that's you only you could do, right? Since you're like doing everything, everything has such a mark of yourself that is anything else would be impossible to. Anyone else would be impossible to do those things, and that's
yeah.
great. And you mentioned switching to game design by the time your first son was born. And can you tell us how was that switch? Like what made you transition, for fiction writing to game design,
Yeah.
which is kind of your focus. So you still kind of do fiction sometimes, right? But
Yeah.
but your focus is the tabletop gaming right now, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. So two really huge things happened to me. So um, at the same time my son was born, I was also writing. I was writing fiction, and then I had a series optioned for TV for like 4 years, and I learned a lot during that experience. But in the end, it was a very sort of sad and negative experience, just because obviously the property didn't get turned into a movie or a TV show, and I had dumped so much work into this project. Like the novels, the 3 novels are like 900 pages long, and that's just one task. And then I had to write, a full season outline, a pilot, a show Bible, create a lookbook, and then for 4 years on spec without really getting paid. Um,
Mm.
Somebody took the script and sort of made their own thing and made a movie, which is pretty close to what my story is. So I remember like
Sure.
literally going to a bar and crying at the bar. Like I was that guy, head down, crying at the bar because I had just seen the movie and it was like pretty darn close to what my world was. So that was one thing. And then the other thing, my son was born. Um, I had been playing a lot of video games, like deep RPGs, Dark Souls, just thousands of hours in front of the screen. And I said to myself, like, I just can't do this anymore. I'm going to have a baby. So I need some other gaming outlet to satisfy that need. And tabletop came at the very, very, very crucial right time for me.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
And are you still able to enjoy video games nowadays. I mean, I kind of made that switch too, and I sometimes try to get back and enjoy a little bit, but I just get bored with it. Like I get a game and I play like for 1 week and like, yeah, this is cool. And the second is like, yeah, it's okay. And the third is like, yeah, this I can't do this anymore.
It's
And
oh man, it's really funny you say that because like there's so many games that I want to buy, like the new there's
Baldur's
Hell
Gate 3. Have you
there's
played that?
that
Like I kind
yeah
of want to, but I know I don't know. I know
Dragon's
it's
Dogma
late. Yeah.
Dragon's Dogma 2 is about to come out, and I know if I buy it, just like what you said, if I buy it, I'll play it for literally a couple hours, I'll totally love it, but then never pick it up again because I similarly I get bored or inspired, and I'm like, wow, that just gave me an idea. I'm gonna go, I'm gonna go write a whole thing. So,
Oh yeah. Yeah. And I don't know,
um,
and sometimes too when if I have too much free time to play this for a long while, I think I should be writing something. I should be drawing. I should be
yes,
I don't
yeah.
know.
It's
Yeah.
well, it's I think when your work starts selling, and you have kids and a family, there's incentive there. It's very hard for someone of our age to sit down on a couch knowing they have these talents. And I'm not saying, oh, we're super talented, but you have a revenue source at your fingertips. It's very hard not to do that. And it's really fun. Like, it's just fun to sit down and dream of
Yeah.
stuff, materialize it. And it feels so darn good when you're done because you're like, wow, I have a book. Like,
Yeah.
instead of wasting 30 hours in front of a computer, you have a
Yeah,
book.
I think I feel worse by not doing it. It's like kind of exercise. Knowing it's not even about the money because, what pays the bills here is my day job. I don't work enough to, it helps. Uh, but I mean, it's more about I can do this. I have all these ideas that I want to put forth. I keep imagining them, and I can physical for it. It's stuff that I want to make happen. Like I want to materialize these things that I imagine, right?
Yes.
And
Yeah.
if I have, because I don't have a lot of free time, like my day job, like we spend time with the kids, we have to do stuff at the house, you have to spend time with family and the wife and this kind of stuff. And the little free time we have, like we have to divide by this stuff that we really want to watch or read or a book or a movie or a TV series that you really want, you want to write to, and and then there's too little to spare. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
With video games, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. I always joke that when like our retirement homes are going to be like lit, like we'll be 80 years old with VR goggles on, and that's the time we'll get to play these like wicked insane video games. We'll be
Yeah.
like 95 on some sort of weird hallucinogenic drug having a blast.
Yeah,
I'll
that's
just
true.
wait for that.
Yeah,
That'll
although one of the adventures of this thing that we do, and I can imagine working until I die. I don't know, because we have ideas, we want some. I don't know. It's kind of a need. You have to put these things out in a way, right?
yeah.
Or they will start to clunk your head, because you didn't put them out in a way.
It's absolutely true. Absolutely true.
Yeah. Uh, and Justin, did you mention anything like particularly weird about yourself, maybe a habit or the way you dress yourself? Can you share just a small weird detail that maybe someone said for you? Oh, Justin, that's kind of weird that you do that.
Oh man, I'm sure there's 1,000 things that I do that are a little weird. Right now, it's like just trying to keep my 2-year-old alive, and uh, all right. Here's a good example. In order to keep my kids entertained, I'm always making like funny noises. Like fart noises or like some sort of like bebop, skadoobop noise or whatever. And I was walking down the street. This is a few months ago. I was walking down the street. It was kind of like in the evening. I had a beer. I was feeling really good. And I literally out of nowhere did that. And there was a stranger right by me. I was like, spoop, boop, two boop. Like I literally like made a weird dad noise. And the stranger was right there. And they were like, huh. I think like having the willingness to always like embarrass yourself a little bit to make someone laugh. I mean, that's my quirk. Like I'm always willing to just be a little
Yeah.
goofy to make someone feel comfortable, even though that stranger definitely did not feel comfortable. Like that's where my head was. I was like, I miss my kids. Actually, it was at Origins. I was out of town. That's what it was. That's what it was. And I was thinking of my kids, and that triggered it. I
Yeah.
was like, that's what made me make the weird dad noise. But the stranger was caught off guard.
Yeah, I love that. I'm kind of a goofy dad here too, and my kid loves me, thinks I'm super funny. Uh, but my wife don't enjoy it as much as I do. So I'm just gonna ask you, how does your partner appreciate, your goofy humor and this kind of stuff?
Oh, she loves it. I think she's goofy too. Like we're always like
Okay,
making up songs and like
yeah,
some of the best times we've had is just like driving in the car together, making up silly weird songs and just screaming out the window, like
yeah,
really acting like teenagers. So yeah.
that's great. Yeah, and my son is learning from me, so it's driving my wife insane.
Nice.
The o- the other day when we were like in the car and just talking, he's autistic too, so he gets into his hyper focus and can't stop talking. And then, you know, my wife was kind of stressed, so we were asking him to slow down a little bit, and he asked, "Well, what do you want from me, mommy?" And she's got kind of, "Oh, please, can we a little bit of silence?" And he said, "Oh, so you want to talk about silence? Yeah, I can talk about silence. Silence is kind of."
That's good material for a book. I mean,
Yeah,
I would take that one.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah. And in Justin, we also another thing we talk about here too a lot is about the weird. So we ask the guests here to try to define what is weird for them, and maybe how do they seek that in their work, because your work has a lot of the unusual, the subverting some of the general assumptions. So what is weird for you, and how do you seek that in the work that you do and in your life in general?
okay. Um, ever since college, um, a running theme in my work is really technology. So information technology, how technology changes us and we change it. And I think like even in beneath that first module adventure that I wrote, like the underlying theme is the internet invades a low fantasy setting. So it's almost a trick. Like a lot of people read the beginning of that book and kind of give up, and they're like, "Oh, this is what is this? This seems kind of normal," but it doesn't really set in until like page. It's kind of too late. It's maybe like page 80, and that was sort of maybe a mistake on my part. And to back up to answer your question, I did put an introduction into that book that says, "Oh, hey," like I really spelled it out because I made a mistake early on because writing fiction, it's all about this slow reveal and you can't
Yeah,
really put your cards on the table. I didn't understand that at first when I was writing adventures. So I literally had to spell it out at first. So yeah, technology, absolutely. I remember in college, I worked at the bookstore. I went to art school, and on the first and second floor were the art supplies. You would go in and buy paint and canvases and printmaking materials. On the half of the second floor was a bookstore, a really well stocked like art bookstore with some poetry, great fiction, and lots of art books. And then on the third floor was the stock room. So you had to third and fourth floor. So you had to like as an employee go all the way upstairs, grab a 30-pound bag of plaster and haul it down to the first floor for customers. Um, but what I would do is I would take books from the bookstore and hide them in the stock room, and I would go up there pretending to stock stuff and just read for 20 minutes, 30 minutes at a time. And the Marcia McLuhan, Understanding Media, and The Medium is the Massage. Those two books when I was like 18, 19 years old completely reinvented the way that I look at media in general, and it's informed my work ever since. Like everything that I touch, I feel like goes back to that guy and his approach to sort of like medium first, message second.
Hmm.
So, and I kind of credit my like, I mean, I'm really infatuated with manufacturing and how things are produced, how
What's his
inks.
name? The author name again?
Oh,
Sorry.
Marshall McLuhan. I know no one else
Okay.
can see me but you on this, but here's an LP.
Mm-hmm.
The medium is the massage. So he was really active in the 60s and 70s as really like the first person to look at media, look at commercials in general, print commercials, TV commercials, radio commercials, and dissect them and kind of reverse engineer the way that we approached media from like the pre-literate societies up until now. And his overarching kind of thesis is that we create a medium, say it's like the printing press, that we control that press for a little while, but as it massages the culture, as it changes the culture, it's the printing press that's changing us. So every single medium that we create, for a little while we can just enjoy it as a medium, but pretty soon it's taking over. It's changing the way that we're interacting with each other, and that's only speeding up with the internet and AI and all that garbage. Um,
That's
but
true.
it's yeah, for me like that shit is so interesting and weird. To answer your question, that it has always invaded my own brain and invaded my work, and I can't point to a single product, not product, but a single project that I've worked on where I have that sort of seeping in. Even like the most recent book, Sickest Witch. Yeah, it's like set in a forest and stuff, but there's strange modern references in there that I just can't. I somehow can't stop doing. Um, and I think it's fun and it makes it relatable. But it always kind of goes back to information technologies and how they kind of are
Mm-hmm.
controlling us. You know.
Yeah, because they are, and it's kind of scary. Uh,
Hmm.
there is this podcast that's it's called "Tech Won't Save Us." It's all
Yes.
about how we are getting, screwed by, you know, the big tech and stuff like this, and
Yeah.
it's a great discussion. That like as technology advances, it would should make our life, easier and more uh, comfortable. But it's always, being used to exploit and generate more revenue for the field, and
Yeah. Absolutely. And like one of Marshall McLuhan's quotes, I don't remember it verbatim, is World War III will be an information war. Like he knew that in the 60s. He's like, it's not going to be a practical war. It's going to be an information war. A war. Whoever controls the information will win, basically. And he knew that.
it is kind of like this already, like the fake news stuff, the algorithm, and the thing that you said, like when something starts, we get to enjoy it as a medium. So I remember the beginning of even social media and the internet, that you would post something, people would see it. Like I had, organic grew a RPG blog page to like 15,000 likes, and I would post something and thousands of people would interact with it. But
Yep.
now the same page, if I post something, it's like 50 people
Yep.
see it. Like we lost control of how internet. We would go to internet to be easy to find. People could find you, could discover you,
Yep.
and one of my creative crushes that I talk about here, like Bo Burnham, was discovered on YouTube.
Mm,
And now he talks about how this would never happen with someone
right.
like him again. You
Right.
know.
Yeah. And we as like pedestrians or civilians barely understand how it's all functioning. Like we can read an article and they can
Yeah.
explain it to us. But then tomorrow it just changes, and whatever algorithm they're using, or
Yeah.
Google or whoever, it's evolving so quickly that
Yeah.
we can't keep up as individuals. So
Yeah. Like the seminars to use Facebook ads is like try things out. That's the seminar.
right,
Yeah, just try things out.
yeah, just throw money at it. Just throw money
Yeah.
at it.
Yeah. That's the tutorial. How do you use, to reach your public? Yep, just try a bunch and see what works. Oh,
Yeah, yeah,
great.
yeah,
And
yeah.
then
How fun. Well, you know, all the more reason to do what we do, right? So like,
yeah.
it just brings me more and more joy to sit down with a pen and a piece of paper
Oh
and
yeah.
draw some guy in the forest and then scan it and put it in the darn book. I mean, that just like at the end of the day, if I just get that done, I feel great, and
Yeah.
maybe 7 people see it. That's
Oh yeah.
that's
That's
fine.
that's the stuff that I love too. And I tried to have publishers and do the more this kind of marketing and have to publish the stuff that you do, like you publish, you ship stuff, etc. And I can't. I'm the creation guy. If I have to deal with that, I can't. I don't have
Yeah.
the executive functional capabilities for this kind of stuff. Uh, do you think, talking about weird and this information, all this stuff, but getting to RPGs now, and I always ask guests here is if they believe that role-playing games in themselves, like the medium, is it weird? And what is your favorite part of the role-playing game as a medium?
All right. Is it weird? Um, it's weird in our like popular culture, but I think it's really, if you look back at history and like how people learned from each other before the telephone and the internet and all that stuff, like we lived in an oral society, right? Like people would sit around a campfire and tell stories, or you would like really, if you respected your dad, your grandpa, or your grandma, you would sit down, you would listen to them tell a story, and that would become your reality. Or you would go to church. I don't go to church or any of that, but if you would go to church once a week and you would pay attention for an hour to the sermon, and that became your reality for however long. That changes your brain. It becomes who you are. So role playing is really no different. I think that people role play all the time and don't really admit it.
Oh yeah,
Um, like
we all do.
yeah,
We
super
all do.
normal people, they go lease an
We don't
Audi.
act the same way when we are in a game convention, and then we are with your family dinner with your wife and kids. It's different,
Absolutely, the
The
person going
characters you
to
play depends with the people you are playing, and s- and you assume a character because you think that person assumes you are this thing. So you have to play to according to their assumptions of you too. So you're all kind of making models of each other, to function in a way, right?
yeah, yeah. So I don't think it's weird at all. I think it's cool that you role players can admit that, like, oh yeah, it's totally fine to assume this personality, because you know what, everyone else is doing it too. Like the guy who goes to
Yeah.
the Land Rover dealership and leases a Land Rover is role playing that he's wealthy, because maybe he can't afford it.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
there's so many versions of role playing
Of
that are
course.
happening
Yeah.
every second, all the time.
We were
What
just
was this?
having fun with it. Yeah.
Yeah, we're just having fun. We're having a lot more fun than most people.
Yeah.
What was the second part to the question? There was the weird part, and then there was the
And what was your favorite part of the role playing game as an experience as a medium?
man. So there's so many, but like I think the community first, because I've been involved in like music communities, literature communities, in different levels. Like academia, um, indie publishing with literature and fiction. Um, I worked for the government for 18 years in that community. But when I think of a community who is mostly positive and mostly helpful, and people who lift each other up, always like cross posting, like, oh hey, I just launched a Kickstarter, I need help. Like I don't know anyone in this community that would blink an eye or even think for a second not to do it. Like, of course I'm going to help. Of course I'm going to like shout out your project or um,
Yeah.
lend a hand with an illustration or something. So like that, and that probably goes back to like, D&D turns 50 this year, and Gary Gygax literally created D&D in his basement. So that never would have happened without his community of players and that collaboration. So that spirit, that like collaborative spirit, is what I love most, hands down.
Yeah, that's great too. But I think that's also uh the way you focus onto the community, but because you can see in both ways, right? Like the community is so big that it's not all good, right? We have bad stuff, and there's people that focus on that and say the community is terrible and it's toxic and stuff. And yeah, there is, well, in every community, right? But
Yes.
I
Yeah,
just
yeah.
say this kind of collaborativity and people helping each other. It is something that I don't see like when I work at, as you said, when I use it to work with children's book illustration,
Mhm.
and it doesn't work like this. And even in in the tabletop RPG community here in Brazil, one of the reasons I started writing more in English too is that the community is more helpful and more united and more
Yeah.
amicable than I feel it is here in Brazil. You know.
Interesting. Interesting. Um, yeah, I can't put my finger on why that would be different here. It's just, for me, it's just been wonderful. Like, I remember really
Yeah.
having no idea what the heck I was doing at first, and just kind of throwing ideas out, and like there were so many people that came to me and that they just kind of helped me out, like really did, like really early on. So
Yeah.
um
You mentioned you had mentors. That was something I wanted to ask you. Could you talk a little bit about that? And then, if
yeah,
you can, tell who they were, what did you learn from them? And not only about, doing the work, but how about, be, a good person in the community.
yeah. So for fiction, it was Michael Kimball. Really soft-spoken, humble, minimal fiction writer. He helped me out and let me see a couple of things that I was doing wrong early on, and those skills folded over into the gaming world too. And then it was weird, like in that avant-garde fiction community, Ken Bowman, who did put out like Maze of the Blue Medusa through Seder Press. So he was an old friend of mine through the fiction community, and he came through town through Baltimore one day with his wife and stayed at my house, and he had just published that book. And I know with like Zach Smith and all that stuff, it's controversial. I don't want to talk about that dude, but
Yeah.
um, the um, he sat down and he ran it for us. I literally called everyone I knew, and my buddy Jimmy showed up, and Zeb Cook, Planescape
Wow.
Second Edition, showed up, and I still have his character sheet somewhere. Um,
And
but he,
and 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 the Eyes of Dread, right? And the uh X,
yeah,
the BX, the X is
yeah,
cooked. Yeah.
yeah.
Wow.
So it was the three of us sitting in my basement, and Ken ran Maze of the Blue Medusa, and it was just so different and so weird. And Ken helped me out through a couple obstacles as too with the adventure writing. Um, but yeah, those two guys, and then as far as influences go, I always point to Mike Mignola, like Hellboy, BPRD fame. He's always a point
Yeah.
of reference for me, not as a mentor, but as someone who kind
It
of.
is kind of, you study his work and he's kind of involuntary kind of mentor in a way, right?
I think so.
Yeah.
Thinking about like the comic artists from the '90s, and a lot of them, they did it a certain way. But I think Mignola, in the end, as far as like a creator-owned person, someone who owns their own property through and through, um, he's just done it right. It's been 30 years of that thing, and he's still creating that world, and it's still expanding, and it's wild.
Yeah, for sure. Uh, Justin, do you have any kind of creative ritual, something that you do to help you get into the mood, help get the juices flowing before you start sitting down to write or draw or anything like this?
Yeah. So I think just through habit, um, because I worked for the government for so long, like for 18 years, I woke up at 5:15 a.m., jumped in the shower, brushed my teeth in the shower, didn't eat breakfast, got my coffee, and sped to work so I could get there at 6 o'clock.
What did you
And
do for the Can you tell us, or is it like top secret
top
information?
secret,
What did
man.
you
I
do? Okay.
tip. No, I'm just kidding. I worked for 10 years. I worked in printing. So I would travel around the country to different printing plants to make sure there's like printing stuff correctly. So like big offset presses with like 10 different stations, big Heidelberg presses. And then for the last 8 years, I was in communications. So writing, speech writing, writing journal entries, and writing for their blog. Just any kind of like writing you can think of. Um, so yeah, but luckily I was on flex time, meaning that I could get there super early and leave super early. So
Hmm.
um, a lot of times it was slow in the morning, so I would get writing done for myself at 6 o'clock at my desk. And once people kind of meandered in, I would work. But then I would go home right away and I would get home by 3 o'clock, put another pot of coffee on, and then I would write until like 5 or 6, like every single day.
Wow.
So I still have, I still do that. Like I woke up at 5 a.m. today, and before my wife and kids are up, I had really like 2.5 very intense hours, of writing. I did editing on a recent book, and then I drew a little bit. But I try to do that as often as I can. Um,
And what time
just
do you go to bed to wake up at 5
uh,
a.m.?
you know, if I lived by myself, I would go to bed at probably nine or 9:30. But with the wife and kids, I end up probably going to bed around 10 o'clock.
Okay.
So I get a good like
Yeah.
6 or 7 hours.
Yeah.
Um,
That's
but
that's my how usually what I get too. Yeah.
yeah, I feel like I always knew this, but I could never really articulate it very well. But um, a lot of people talk about time management, of course, but other people talk about time plus energy. And I
Yeah.
think that for me in the morning, before I've eaten anything, I grab that coffee. My brain is like at
Mm-hmm.
optimum level, and I just know that. Like it's come through practice, it's come through experience. But if I
Yeah.
can wake up every day and have those 2.5, 3 hours, then I can get 5 hours worth of stuff done. I just know I can. Um, and it really, really matters, and it adds up. And like that's something I used when I was writing fiction because it was so freaking demanding. Um, you know, I had to write 2 to 3 pages a day, and that was difficult. But
Oh yeah.
having 2 or 3 hours a day to do it, if you do it 5 times a week, you can write a novel in 6 or 7, 8 months. You just have to do it every day, like every single day.
Yeah, that's usually what I say. Like 1 page a day. If you don't miss any day in the year, you have a novel.
Yep.
And but in like 2.5 hours, you can write. If you manage to put words down, you can write quite a lot. Do you sit down to write again in the afternoon too, or like you do all that you can in the morning and in the afternoon? Like you do other stuff like house stuff, spend time with family. How is the rest of your day if you can put down that much work right in the morning?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I'll typically transition to drawing in the afternoon, just because it's more meditative. Um, it's just more fun. So like a lot of times I trick myself. So I do the hard stuff first in the day, or even if I'm cleaning the
Yeah,
house, I'm like I'm gonna do the hardest thing first, and then everything's downhill. So I'm like,
that's a good strategy. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, I'm constantly like gaming myself to get things done. But it's a nice treat, like I'll eat a little candy bar, grab my brush pen, and knock out a couple weird liches. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
awesome. Uh, we talk about some of your influence, people you learned from, but I always ask people here too about maybe sorts of inspirations beside exactly people, maybe an area of your life or media. I say that because I draw a lot from the stuff I consumed as a kid.
Mhm.
Was kind of my refuge, and like comics, cartoons, and movies. We also draw a lot from our daily lives, of course, as game designers and artists. We are constantly watching out for inspirations, of course. But can you sense anything, any area from which you see yourself constantly drawing from in your work or in your art?
Uh, yeah. So like definitely that going back to that technology thing that I talked about. I mean, that's always present. Um, but
Mm-hmm.
man, like I'm kind of addicted to politics. Maybe it's living close to DC, like the capital, or working for government for so long. It's just the ever increasing weirdness. We'll go back to weird of American politics, like Trump and QAnon and all that. I mean, all that stuff is just
Have you put QAnon on any game yet? Because that's kind of a weird cult, or
yeah. You know, I
adapting that
probably,
to fantasy would be for a urban fantasy game. That's a
yeah.
great stuff. I'm gonna watch some documentaries
Man.
to put
I mean,
some weird Q code, a code with Q. Write code with Q, and that's it.
talk about role playing. I mean, like if you're gonna get into any sort of like LARP, like QAnon is that's like the highest level LARP you can do because they are
Yeah.
just deep, 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 deep. I don't want to get it. I don't want to get in trouble, but so yeah, like I mean, part of my daily routine is going to like doom scrolling these like weird news sites, just seeing like what did Trump say last night? Like, what kind of trouble is he in now? Like, and it's just, for me, it's just entertaining. And like, a lot of that does,
Yeah,
I think those,
comedians love him. Yeah,
yeah, a
because
lot of those,
it's a constant source of material, I guess.
yes. So that weirdness kind of seeps into my work. Um, it's just like, I guess I also like p- part of part of the fiction piece that I miss because like the fiction that I wrote was deeply rooted in not history. Well, like the first two books that I wrote were about the Iraq War, and those were written around historic events like the battles of Fallujah, the bombing of Al Mutanabi Street in 2007. Um, so I'll admit like the one thing that I desperately miss is the realism and the tension of the work that I used to do, and I'm always trying to recapture that. So like maybe in a way the whole technology and politics thing is my way of grounding the work in reality and trying to
Make things more uh, meaningful, right? More this is kind of serious. There is a message behind this. There is something I'm trying to say.
absolutely and
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's really important to me. So and that's where like low like I don't know if I don't want to say anything negative, but I'm not a big like high fantasy person. Like I don't write about dragons, I don't write
Yeah,
about fairies or magic. All my work is very low and as real
there's
as I
nothing
can.
wrong with that. Yeah, that's something personal. That's something you align to. I'm kind of the same way. Like this kind of high fantasy that everything is magic, kind of that became the norm from past 2000, I guess.
Mhm.
Because of video games too, like everything is shiny, like you swing the sword and lights come out and things like that. Yeah, it's
Yeah, that never really interested me. So all of my work is you almost always either low fantasy or as realistic as I can get. And even the sci-fi stuff that I've done for Mothership and Cyborg, it's pretty gritty. Like Aliens 2, people are still smoking cigarettes on the spaceship for some reason, like that kind of thing. they still use like practical weapons, even though
Yeah. Well,
they probably have better stuff in the future. But uh, yeah, it's that realism that I'm always craving to get back to.
yeah, that's great. And are you currently working on any project you want to talk about and share us maybe your favorite weird parts of it?
Yeah, gosh. So right now I'm illustrating and designing the or graphic designing. I don't want to say I'm designing the game, but the two guys that did the Spine of Night. That did you
Oh
end up
yeah.
watching that?
Yes, two times. It's so good. It's a
It's,
really good. i- It's kind of philosophical too. It's like this.
yeah,
It's a weird psychedelic movie. It's a great animation with that rotoscope style that you don't
yeah,
see a lot more in it. It's sword and sorcery. That this kind of primal feeling to it too. There's time travel. It's adventure, and there's a lot of philosophy behind too. I love it. I can't recommend it enough.
yeah. I love it as well. So excuse me. I guess I'll back up a tiny bit. I met Phil and Morgan, those two guys, through Brian Evenson. So the last project I did for Mork Borg was Brian Evanson's The Dark Glinting with Metal. And Phil from The Spine of Night blurbed that book, that project
Mm-hmm.
for us. So I was emailing with them. I was like, oh, shoot, man. Like, I love your movie. Like, wow. um, would you ever want to do a game project? And he immediately was like, probably yes. Let me talk to my partner. So Morgan and Phil got back to me like 2 weeks later. We started talking, and they have already delivered their manuscript for Veilgrave. And I'm illustrating that right now. And I'm hoping that'll be on Kickstarter in June or July. Um, that is super exciting.
What is
But
Veil Grave?
gosh, I don't want to say too much about it yet. It is, oh man. So people, of course, it's a dark setting, but people are being either kidnapped or voluntarily turned into oil. They're being like turned
Wow.
into like a vaporous drug that you can inhale, and it allows you to travel into different dimensions. But you're basically like you're huffing people. So that's all I want to say. I mean, it's absolutely psychedelic, like just like the Spine of Night. It has like some of the
Yeah.
same themes, and you can skeletonize yourself through the game. Like in order to go through the veil, you can opt to turn yourself into a skeleton. Just strip all your flesh away, and you can kind of live.
Mm-hmm.
That's an interesting mechanic, but
You live
it's
as
very
like a skeleton.
yeah, yeah.
Wow.
Um, so yeah, working on that's been awesome. But before we launch that on Kickstarter, we're gonna do the first party Morkborg action figure. Um,
Yeah.
Sort of a bucket list thing that I've always wanted to do, and I feel like talking again about manufacturing and having all this experience, kind of like boiling into one business. I know that we can do it. Like I have the right factory, I have the right the rep between me and the factory. Like we have a good understanding. So yeah, it's super exciting. Uh, Johan and Pella, like they seem pretty jazzed.
Yeah, that's amazing. I would love to have, action figures for Primal Quest, like fantasy, Stone Age guys and dinosaurs. That would be amazing. I'm sure they are excited for
Yeah,
like Morkborg is becoming like a giant, right? And then everything is has kind of this uh Morky multiverse, right? Like the
yeah,
cinematic Morkborg cinematic universe, kind of a
yeah.
way.
I mean, like to talk about community, like
Yeah,
the people, the third party creators that are helping boost Mork Borg, they're all interesting and weird and fun, and like it's very
and
rare
they
that I
make
pick
great
up.
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, it's rare that I pick up a book and I'm not impressed with the quality of like what the third party people are doing. So um, as far as like, I will say like creating an action figure sucks in a few ways. I mean, it is just
It's
so
hard.
expensive.
Yeah.
It's hard. Like we got lucky because we found a great sculptor through my buddy Nick Pitarra. I can talk about him later, but his Ax-Wielder will be the next action figure. But yeah, we found a great sculptor that can capture the sort of tone and mood of the art in three dimension, and that's super freaking difficult. And this guy's very
Yeah.
gifted and fun to work with. Um, but then also like there's a lot of hurdles. There's the money part because in order to do just a basic 7-inch action figure, that's like $35,000
Yeah.
just in the tooling, the molds, like the
The molds,
injection.
yeah. That's
Just
the most of the cost, I think, right?
yeah, that's before you put plastic in there.
Yeah.
So um,
You pay all that and you don't have one to use. It's
right,
just yeah.
just stare at the molds all day.
Yeah.
Um, but I feel like with Morkborg and the community behind it, I think it's like the perfect test case for us to attempt to do it. And if it funds, it funds. If it doesn't, I will be very sad. But
Yeah.
I feel like we can do it right. We can't rush it. We have to. It has to be like super high quality. Um, but pending how many subscribers we get, signups, we should be launching sometime in April. But
Awesome. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
people can sign up now. People can go there. Go
Yeah.
to
You said you put the links there. If please say the link and we'll put on the show notes too, for sure.
yeah. If you just go to severedbooks.com, there's the crowdfunding page, and it's all linked up there. Or you could go to severedtoys.com. That's maybe the easiest way. Um, but yeah, for the just to like, this is the part where I really sell it. For the first 48 hours, the backers all get a special flanged mace. So like a big ass mace that'll come with the figure. I think it's
Nice.
cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think I
Yeah,
shared that on Facebook recently.
I would love to back it, but from Brazil, I can't. Like the taxes would not gouge us. But it looks cool. Like the spine rack, like for Zines you made, looks fantastic, and
Oh, yeah.
you're making great stuff. And I'm excited for this, and excited, hoping this really succeeds to see what other game will have action figures in the future. So I'm excited
Yeah,
to see where that goes.
we'll see. We'll see. Um,
Hello, wonderful weirdos. This is Diogo Nogueira again, and today I'd like to talk to you about one of my favorite games, a game that I created. And if you listen to the podcast, I love dinosaurs, and it's called Primal Quest. It is a weird stone and sorcery adventure game. It's a NSR game, which is this game that caters to the old school style of play, but has more modern and more cinematic gameplay adapted to our modern sensibilities. It has adventure with dinosaurs, ancient civilizations, spirity, sorcery, aliens, elder gods, and much, much more. It's very pulpy. It has, a complete rule set, a mini hex scroll, an adventure introductory adventure. You can find it at Exalted Funeral, itch.io, Drive-Thru RPG, and your best local game store. And we're releasing more and more stuff for it, so stay tuned and play Primal Quest. So let's get back to the weird with our chat. What would you say, Justin, is the weirdest game you played, or a really weird game you played recently that left you an impression? And it can be tabletop or video games. I know, like me, you don't play much of those, but any kind of game, board game, or just playing with friends or anything like a LARP or anything.
Man, all right. It wasn't recently, but my buddy Adam Good ran 10 Candles for us a couple years ago. And it was so profoundly personal and just screwed up that we still talk about it. I still reference it. I still like sort of am a little jealous of
Nice.
it. you know when you play a game and you have that little bit of jealousy, you're like, oh wow, like
Why didn't come up with that, right? Yeah.
yeah, or like that's memorable. Like I'll never forget that. Damn, you know? Um,
Yeah.
really, and like I was my character was this female experiment. She was a musician in residence at a facility. I can't remember what kind of it was like a very commercial facility. She had no reason to be there, but she had some sort of weird residency where she was making music with the tools there, but she was wheelchair bound. So I had to wheelchair myself through the game, and I was one of the last to die. And I ended up at my childhood home, crawling up the stairs from my bedroom, basement bedroom, and I died in the driveway, like looking up at
Wow.
the sky. And everyone was just like, "Holy crap!" Like, damn, it was just
Yeah.
profound, but like weirdly beautiful. Oh man, it was messed up.
Yeah, that game was mentioned before here, and I haven't played it, but I'm really looking to see an opportunity because it's sounds really impactful and different, and leads to impactful gameplays like this. It's really good game design.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
and pretty minimal. Like it gives a lot to the game master to craft like where it's going. Um, but when done well, I've had multiple people tell me like, "Wow, like that's one of the best games I've ever played." Like a session of 10 candles.
Wow.
And also like the tension for me, like a lot of it is tension, not just building but maintaining and shifting. And I feel
Mm-hmm.
like just the mechanic of blowing out the candles and environmentally as it gets darker and darker, it's hard not to be totally bought in. Like you're just in it, and it's getting smaller and smaller and smaller.
Yeah.
It is such a simple but effective mechanic.
Yeah, because it kind of plays with this reality of the game and the reality you are as a player too. As you said, like the median is the message, and they're playing with the median of like you're not only in the story in the station, in reality too. As a player, it's getting darker, it's getting kind of strange and more clustered, So yeah,
Yeah,
that ties up with what you're talking about earlier. Justin, do you have any other hobbies, besides, role playing game now? It's not kind of only a hobby, it's kind of a job too. But do
yeah.
you have anything else that's just for you and for you to enjoy and create and play with?
Gosh, it's hard because like my kids are really young, and I feel like every second of my day is either feeding them or
Yeah.
running around. But cooking, like I've tried to get more into cooking lately. Like go, there's this amazing market up the road, and I go there sometimes and get like giant hunks of meat and try to like do different things with those, like in the slow cooker. Um, so that's
Mm-hmm.
something like I love and I can share with my family. But
Nice.
I've also gotten back into comic books, which is really fun and nice. And that
Are
was
you
like,
writing, drawing, or making a project or something for
oh
yourself,
no,
or just practicing?
just reading.
Oh
So
yeah.
like I had stopped reading comics for a long time, and then when COVID hit, it's like, oh, I'm working from home and I have all this extra money because I'm not eating out, and um, so I just started reading a bunch of different things, and that was for me. It was really healthy because I hadn't like really dove into modern comics in a long time. So um, and that's how
Anything
I met
good
like
you can
uh,
recommend? Anything?
right. I mean, I hadn't read Something Is Killing the Children, so I'm going through that right now. Um, and gosh, Ultra Mega. Have you read Ultra Mega?
No, I don't know what it is.
Oh man, it's by James Heron. Do I have it over there? I was going to show you the cover. I know it's a podcast, so it doesn't really matter what I hold up to the camera.
But
But
we
I
can
cannot.
describe it, yeah.
Yes, I will describe it. So I'm not into like kaiju's or giant robots or anything like that, and I was very skeptical to get into this book. But the artist worked on BPRD, like Hellboy, for a while, and I had collected his art for a little bit. So I was like, shoot, James Heron he's not only drawing it, he wrote it too. Like it's his own thing. So I had to pick it up. And just imagine Ultraman, but with horrific body horror happening
Mhm.
and
Okay.
some really unexpected emotional twists in the story. It's fabulous.
Cool.
I can't recommend it enough. Ultra Mega.
Yeah, I will look it up and I'll put the link in the show notes, people to check it out too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Do
go ahead.
do you have by any chance maybe like a dream project you always wanted to work on and then you're still getting into that?
Yes. So I'd be really a little scared to work with Mike Mignola, but if I could create any sort of
What
anything
do you
with him,
mean scared? Why? Why scared?
well, like collaborating with a hero. So like, what if
Oh,
something went wrong, kind
yeah.
of thing. Like I wouldn't want to upset or disappoint someone that I admire so much. But yeah, that I mean
But
that
do
that
you think you would? Like why do you straight go there? Like you straight mention the fear.
oh gosh, well, like I don't know why I mentioned that right away because I feel pretty confident in what I can do and what I can make. There's always just between like manufacturing hiccups, and I'm always pushing the envelope and trying something new. So like maybe if I did
Mm,
collaborate with him, I would just do something I
you know it will
exactly know how
work.
to do. Yeah,
Okay, yeah.
but yeah, like seriously, like I feel like with every project I've done recently, I've been adding a little bit more, and not that it's been biting me in the butt, but I'm just sort of risking a little bit each time. Especially with
And
the spinner racks, like the
yeah,
spinner racks
yeah.
are huge.
I've noticed that you're always trying to do things a little bit different, something a little more strange, a little bit more unusual.
Yeah,
And that's very cool. And I'm very happy it has been going your way. And do you see any reason why you're always, trying to push a little bit? Do you always
I
do you feel the
yeah,
need to try something different or you're just
I think I think there's a number of reasons. One, it's fun and interesting.
yeah.
Two, it keeps me different and relevant. I hope in the marketplace. Um, and three, you can make a little bit more money. Like I don't want to be sound shallow or callous, but you can put out an A5 book that's 80 or 90 pages, and there's that item. But then you can also bundle it with like I'm doing those Meeple small party guys, those sets of six like figures.
Mm-hmm.
So if I do a book and a set of those six little figures and maybe one other small thing, you've turned a project that makes X amount, and you might have times it times three or four just by adding on some interesting stuff with it.
Mm-hmm.
And the extra stuff I really love. Like that's stuff that I think is fun and cool looking, and I use in games. And like
Yeah.
I'm never gonna make something that's just like silly or like well, some stuff is silly, but something
Still is fun
superficial.
too. Yeah.
Yeah, but like I'm always hopefully anything that I make or add on to a project isn't superficial and always adds another level or layer to it, and people just love it. Like that's really the end goal, is to have fun and have people love my stuff so I can sustain my lifestyle and keep having fun and blah blah blah.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I think part a major thing that makes Severed Books and Severed Toys different is my ability to create new and interesting modest items for tabletop gaming.
Yeah. And I think you've done well. And I think all those extra things really add to the playability of the thing or make things a little bit more whimsical, I guess, in a way too. And I think that's important to games, especially games with horror and stuff. It adds a little bit of levity to make things more bearable in a way.
Yeah. Yeah.
You mentioned about hobbies and having kids and young kids. You have a 2-year-old and you have another kid too.
Yeah, Ivor is 7.5. God, he'll be 8 in April, so we'll just call him 8. And then Gray, the little guy, he's 2.5.
Wow. Yeah. And
Yeah,
how is your kind of how are you as a parent and like what do you usually do with the kids and in how does that affect the way you do your work too and how do you divide those things because I'm always with the sensation that more time with the kids too but I have to do the work and how do you divide those balance the parenthood.
it's not easy. But like, so my wife hadn't worked for 7 or 8 years, and she just recently went back to work full time. So she's right now she's on a business trip. So when my kid gets off school and the younger one gets back from his grandparents, it'll just be them and me for a day or two. And like this kind of goes back to me waking up at 5 o'clock. Like if I didn't wake up at 5 o'clock
Oh
this
yeah.
morning, if I'd kind of puttered around and woke up with the kids and whatever, I would have gotten zero done today. Like it just sort of the momentum of the day would have just sort of
Mm-hmm.
melted, and I would have
Yeah.
maybe watched Fargo, like or something. Um, so yeah, like the balance is tough, but hopefully when the kids get home, put my phone away. I'm not great at like putting the phone away. I'm always distracted, so I have to like literally maroon my phone.
Yeah, me
Um,
too. It's a learning process, I guess. Yeah.
yeah, it's hard, especially when you're creating stuff and like trying to promote something, and
Yeah. You have to
time really
talk about,
matters,
yeah.
urgency matters. So, but yeah, I try to get them outside as much as possible. We're very lucky. We live in Maryland, where really just a mile or two away, there's like a park with a creek and like chickens
Awesome.
and like
That's
tons of
great.
wildlife.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then but then on the flip side, my older kid loves retro video games, and I bought one of those clone systems. It's called
Mm-hmm.
Super Console X or something, and it has 190,000, 16-bit, 18-bit games. Neo Geo. It's got Capcom stuff that was only released in like the EU for some reason, and we've been jamming on that a lot. So it's really fun to like watch him light up. We'll play like a side scroller co-op like Golden Axe
Mm-hmm.
for
Oh yeah.
just half an hour.
Classic.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah, and he is just like in heaven. So
That's awesome.
I uh, I like introducing him to the older stuff because I used to talk about this a lot. Like those older games give your brain space to think and imagine because there's so little to look at. So like I remember playing like the first Final Fantasy, and a lot of that game is so slow. You're just kind of traversing the landscape, or you're going from here to there. And as a kid, I remember just making up a story in my head, like the relationships between the characters. Like, oh, I'm this guy, and I have a crush on her, and I'm going to talk to her when we get to the village. Wasn't always about that, but
Mm-hmm.
uh,
Yeah.
but I love introducing Ivor to those older games because it does allow you to kind of insert your own narrative into the experience, where like modern games today, you get everything. You get like with Baldur's Gate
Yeah, the
3,
narrative. Yeah.
you get more than you want probably. Um, Nothing
That's true.
OSR about
Yeah.
it.
Talking about kids, and it's something that I see a lot in my kids. I see a lot of myself in them, like the weird stuff that he does, and I'm like, yeah, that's weird, but I used to do that same weird stuff. Do you have anything like this? Like, do you notice the weird particularities of your kids and say, yeah, I
Oh
used
my
to
god.
do the exact same thing?
Yeah. So I was never diagnosed with anything because my parents, my parents like either they didn't know or care, or they were just sort of like
Yeah, yeah. Well,
whatever.
it's that generation. Yeah, they
Kids are
didn't have
kids,
time for mental health too, right? At
right?
least my parents was always working or doing something, and I was spend a lot of time with my grandma, and people didn't talk about this stuff back then. So
They
yeah.
really, they didn't. You're right about that. But I was, for a long time, I was obsessed with symmetry and even numbers. Like everything had to be, like all my toys had to be symmetrical. I remember I had this one cool, like lobster looking action figure, and the only thing that wasn't symmetrical was there was a red square or something on his lapel. And I had my dad literally take nail polish and paint on the other side the same thing. I would like uh, go like this with my fingers, like 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, back and forth. And I would do it in my mouth on my teeth, like
Mm-hmm.
I would touch the tip of my tongue to my teeth all the way back and forth and back and forth. And I felt like if I didn't do it, something terrible would happen. Like so, I
Mm-hmm.
would like, get spun into
Yeah.
these weird rituals, even like touching things twice. Like I called it clearing it, where like if I touched the refrigerator door, I would touch it once and then touch it again to like as if I was getting away from it. Either way,
Mm-hmm.
I somehow got over that myself without any help from my parents, whatever. And I guess it just went away over time. But I see my older son has very similar stuff going on, like very very similar. He doesn't like to touch metal a lot of times when we're eating, so
Mm-hmm.
it like really freaks him out, like a metal spoon, anything metal. If my wife is wearing a necklace that's metal, he won't eat. Like it grosses him out. So
Yeah. Yeah.
um, we're all weird, and like
Yeah.
it's either we channel it and turn it into good, or it goes away, or
Yeah. And
we're
it's kind
just
of understanding that we are all going through that. It's not like, uh, yeah, my kid is doing that to be a jerk to me. No, it's we all have this kind of stuff and doing
yes,
our best, like to deal with that. And I see some of this stuff, makes our life difficult, and we sometimes get, oh, why are you doing that? But and I see my son really trying to deal with this kind of difficulty, and it's helpful to remind myself that I had to deal with a lot of that stuff too, and be
yeah,
patient, right? And
it's
and
a
be
great
there to
point.
help.
Yeah, as a young person, those small things can be huge. Like
Yeah. Oh
I can't
yeah.
remember I can't remember a great example, but I just remember feeling so overwhelmed and helpless at certain points.
Mm-hmm.
And you're right. To like my wife always says, just pause. Don't react. If something if our kids are irritating us or doing something that we think is totally off the wall,
It's
just
they're going
pause.
through a tough time. It's
Right.
not us. Yeah, it's them that are
Yeah.
going through a.
Take a breath. Because I grew up the opposite. My parents were very reactive, and
Yeah, me too.
mostly my extended family. I mean, they were just brutal. They were just brutal people. Like they made fun of each other. It was just always at someone else's expense, and
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it's hard to deprogram yourself from that.
It is.
Like it's very difficult. So
It's
the
a
whole
it's a low process, but it's doable.
yeah,
But it's a lot of work, right? Yeah.
it is. Yeah, I mean, you're a product of your parents. I mean, you become them if you're not careful. You
If you're
become them.
not careful, yeah, yeah, exactly. But it's also so rewarding when you see that the choices you're making are having a good impact on your kid, and you see they doing the right thing and being lovingly and being,
Yeah,
empathic, and helping, and
yeah,
it's yeah,
yeah.
it's great.
My wife, God bless my wife. She is very good at, even if we mess up, she will go back and explain as best as we can to the kid why we reacted the way that we did,
Oh yeah, that's
what we
very
could do
important
better. Yeah,
to say you're sorry. Like we will screw up. We're not perfect. We're
mhm,
parents. We have to be better than our kids in controlling this, but we will fail, right? It's
yeah,
inevitable. But just go back and talk to them, and say we're sorry. Like my parents never said that, and and yeah.
yeah. Same, 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 same. A lot of those skills, none. not to bring it back to like role playing, but like I feel like a lot of the parenting skills maybe could make you a better GM in the end, because it makes you more
It is
empathetic. It
welcoming,
makes welcoming, even a better
flexible
listener.
too. Yes,
Yeah,
that's true. Never thought about that, but yeah, it has some parallels, parenthood and GMing and
yeah. Your
GMing
players,
hood, or I don't know. Yeah,
your players are like your kids in a way. They
yeah,
they're
that's
all
true.
listening to you. They're trying to get the next clue to what life is going to bring.
That's true. Talking about more weird experiences, I know kids can be weird enough and, kind of change their lives. But have you ever had other, weird experience that's kind of made you think different? Maybe near death experiences or maybe out of body experiences that made you see things in a different way or anything like this?
Oh gosh, I wish. I am so just sort of like pragmatic, and I mean maybe that'll change as I get older and think more spiritually. And I feel like when I was younger, I thought more about spiritualism, but man, I am in the end, I am just a caveman, like scratching out some books.
Yeah.
Uh, I mean, I living in Baltimore. I've had. You might be able to speak to this too, because we've talked about this a tiny bit. But I've been held up at gunpoint twice. I've been
Mm-hmm.
jumped. This is all in the street. I've been jumped once, and like parts of Baltimore can get a little frisky at night. And like as a younger person, well, even like me and my wife got held up at gunpoint when she was pregnant, and that's sort of life changing.
Yeah.
But
It
I
is.
always think about those instances, and um, I mean they always sort of make you reevaluate what you're up to and how you're operating day by day. So um, I feel like I'm very grateful for where I am right now. Like no, going through what I've been through and the near death experiences that I've had, um, I feel so darn lucky that, knock on wood, I'm healthy. I haven't been shot. I'm not in jail. I wake up every day and do things that make me happy. So, I don't believe in ghosts. I've never seen an alien, but I do wake up with a sense of gratitude that I hope I can share with other people. I hope it's infectious.
Yeah. I mean, while I was in Gincon and hang out with you, he always had like a good vibe. He always made me feel welcome, and then I had a great time hanging out with you, and it feels great. So I think that works in a way. So thank you for that.
Thanks.
Talking about the violence and being held at gunpoint. Uh, Living here in Rio de Janeiro, which is pretty violent, and talking about parenthood too. I remember one day we, had my kid wake up in like 3 a.m., feeling really bad, and we had to take him to the emergency room. And we go to the car, and here you have to make a choice. Like, do we put the kid in the car seats because it's safer, or we don't because we first stop at gunpoint at the streets. Sometimes they
Mm,
don't have, then they don't give you time to take your kid out of the car seat. So
right, right.
it's
Well,
how do you ask a parent to make the decision? Do I risk my baby's life by an accident or by being kidnapped? It's
right.
it's
That's
ridiculous.
that's as heavy as it gets, man. Um,
Yeah,
that's really heavy. I've thought about the same exact thing, living living here, and that's a parent's worst nightmare. Like
yeah,
it literally
it's
makes my stomach hurt.
yeah. Talking, maybe a more light subject. Uh, have you ever, tried meditation or other uh, hypnosis or anything that's alter your sense of reality and perception, or even if not that, have you ever tried psychedelics or anything that made you alter your perceptions, and did did the
Yeah,
experience impact you in any way?
yeah. I've definitely like I don't know how much I want to admit. I've experimented with stuff, um, but I feel like, man, I'm still I am still so pragmatic when it comes to just like we're mud people on this mud ball, and any second some asteroid could just split the planet in half, and no one would ever. It wouldn't matter, like just because we're
Oh yeah.
bugs. I just feel like we're bugs. So I guess two answers for meditation. I walk. I walk a lot, and that's super helpful. So if I'm having a bad creative day, if my brain isn't working, if I'm too hungover or whatever, a long walk always helps. And that's my body has to be active in order for me to relax. Like I can't just sit. Like that's never been something I can do. Like I hate the beach. Like I can't sit on the beach and just relax. I always have to walk around or drive a car. Like I can relax if I'm driving, basically. So I need some sort of distraction. So that helps a lot.
But do you do anything while like walking? I do kind of a meditation walking too, and trying to just soak in the senses and forget what the stuff I'm thinking about. Because if I
Yeah,
just go for a walk and continue to think about the stuff that's in my mind, doesn't do me any good. So I have to actively make the effort to hear the sounds that's playing in the streets, look without judgment, and trying to smell, and kind of activate my senses one by
yeah,
one to get out of my head. Do you do anything like this when you go for these
that-
meditative walks?
yeah. That's exactly what it is. It's just being present, I think, and no screen, no internet. Just allow yourself to sort of dream, like a waking dream. I remember when I was working on the longest series of fiction that I completed. In order to brainstorm, I would literally walk. I would drive to the mall. We have this mall that was by my old house, and it's constructed in a loop, so you can just do circuits around the mall. So
Hmm.
like people probably thought I was crazy because I would walk around the mall and sort of like talk to myself a bit. Then I would sit down on a bench and write something down. Then I'd keep going around talking to myself, talking in characters' voices, trying to work out a scene, like literally like working out scenes in
Hmm.
public. Um, so sometimes it's meditative. I guess it depends on what I'm working on. Sometimes it's just meditative, and then sometimes it's very active where I'm like, in a way, like role playing as I'm walking around.
Yeah,
I,
kind of
I
helps
haven't done,
think too. Yeah, kind of helps you think too. So you can
yeah,
you can walk to empty your house, your head, but you also can walk to maybe fill it in with good ideas and put on the paper too, right?
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, there's something about like I don't know if it's blood flow or just making your muscles move, but for me, like I'm surprised I haven't gotten up yet. Like I'm still sitting on the stool. It's a minute and 20, an hour and 20
An hour and
minutes.
20. Yeah. I'm
I'm gonna
sorry
stand
about
up.
that.
I'm just gonna
Yeah.
stand up, do some stretches.
Yeah. Great.
But
Uh,
no, yeah, like I feel way more um, lubricated, I guess, in my brain if my body is also the same way.
Yeah. I think everybody does, but we forget sometimes, and we get comfortable, and it's hard to move around if you stay motionless for too long.
Yeah,
You mentioned about all this skepticism and being mud people in a mud ball, uh, but you also you know talked about the examples you had and what you learned how to be good, and then the values of community. So even though you might not have a religion or maybe spirituality, you do kind of have something morals or kind of a philosophy that helps you guide you through life. And do you have anything like this that you can maybe talk a little about us and how maybe does that help you to deal with tough situations, and also where did you learn that from?
That's such a good question. So my creativity, my writing and my drawing and whatever I'm making, um, I mean that is my therapy and that is my mantra and
It
religion.
is.
Absolutely. Like without it, I mean, I've admitted this to a number of people. I think without writing and drawing, I would either be in jail or dead. Like because my anxiety would have taken over, my bad habits would have taken over. I wouldn't be waking up early to create stuff. I'd be sleeping in late and probably going to the bar, and I wouldn't have lasted through my 30s. You know, like I would have remained a bartender. I mean, I was a bartender in my 20s, early 20s, and then a club promoter. If I didn't have poetry back then and stuff, I would have been a mess, like a total mess. So there's that part. But I can't remember. There was like I don't know if there was a second part to your
No, it's
comment or question.
yeah, about the philosophy. How where did you learn how to be?
Oh, right.
Because you talked about parenthood, and you also talked about how our parents weren't so great as parents, and then where did you learn to say no? I won't be like this. I want to be better. I want to be more centered. I want to, I don't know, be more present. This kind of mindfulness stuff. Where did you learn this from? How did you learn to value community? Like this the favorite part of the hobby for you. uh where those values come from, I would try to
I
ask.
really have no clue, man. Because like I remember when I was really young, um,
It
I
could
always
be from
wanted
the
to be.
books you read, like maybe you read some kind of philosophy or things with morals that left you an impression, or no? You can't remember anything specific.
I think like thinking back to when I was a teenager, um, I always wanted. I always felt like being yourself was the most important thing, and I think. All right, I do want to credit my parents for that. So like my mom and my dad, they're really strange people. They don't follow any rules. They they don't. They're not normal, and they're normal, but they're not. They're like kind of like secret, eccentric people that keep it quiet, but deep down, they are so freaking weird, man. And like, I tell this to my kid a lot. This is the best thing I have for him is the best gift that you can give someone else is letting them be themselves. Like letting that person be themselves. Don't be judgmental. Don't bring your own baggage. Let them laugh. You make an effort to smile, they'll smile. Just let them be themselves. That's it. And if you do that, then we're all going to win. And I think like even though my parents never ever told me that, I think they told me that in the way that they were.
That's great.
Um,
And did they
I'm
let
getting
you
a little
be
choked up.
yourself?
I'm getting a little emotional. Say what?
Did they let you be yourself? Like you talked about how them were really,
Yes,
they are really themselves. Did they let you be yourself?
they did. They did. They like my
That's
parents were
great.
the first. When I wanted to paint, they just got in the car right away and bought the paint and the canvases. When I wanted to listen to death metal, they ran me down to the store and got me the death metal. Like they never ever ever said no to a creative thing, and that has made so much difference in my life. Um,
That's awesome.
and I
Yeah.
don't think I've ever really said it like that before. You know, I've thought about it, but I've never really admitted it. And I've been resentful towards my parents because there's two ways to go. Like you can be not caring and just let your kid do whatever they want, which is kind of what they did, or you can be a helicopter parent and be overbearing, and then your kids hate you. I've always been a little resentful that they weren't more hands on and pushed me to do certain things. Um,
Mm.
you can't have it both ways. Obviously, I feel
Yeah.
lucky that I had it my way because I turned out fine, I guess. But I guess to answer your question, it was that upbringing, uh, being able to just sort of experiment, go in my bedroom, draw silly stuff, bring it up to my parents, and they look at it and give me a thumbs up, and I go back down and do it again and again and again. And um, that was really huge. And I feel like I've always stuck with that. Like I've always wanted to be different, be myself, but not too much, not in an obnoxious way. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, and
Not
I
being
hope
different for being different, just being yourself, right? Yeah.
absolutely just be yourself and like uh, yeah. I hope I can pass it on
That's
to my
awesome.
kids. That's
Yeah.
what that's if I pass on one thing to my kids, that's it. Like let people be themselves, and then you be
Yeah.
yourself and make yourself happy. Learn how to make yourself happy through art, through writing, through basketball, whatever the heck you love. Just do it well and be kind.
Yeah. That phrase you said, like the best gift you can give someone else is to let them be themselves is beautiful. And I don't know if you know who the author of that is, but it's yeah,
That's me,
it should
baby.
be. Oh
I'm
yeah.
taking
Wow.
credit for
Oh
that.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, I'm putting here, okay. You know, just seeing we're getting like into the end of the interview, and now I ask you more whimsical and fun questions to get to know more about your personality and tastes. So, uh, if you could dream about, choose the things you dream about when you go to sleep, what did you dream about?
Man, gosh, that's a great question. I feel like I'm living my life so well right now. Not that I've like, oh, I've peaked and like my life can't get any better. But I wake up and I create stuff, and my wife is lovely and supportive, and my kids are great. And when I go to bed, I literally just sort of fall asleep right away. Um, but I do have dreams. I obviously have dreams, and I
Oh
just
yeah.
want to like get better at what I'm doing, collaborate more with people I love. Um, I feel like just getting better and better at running this little weird business and making highly crafted books. Is that weird? I mean, that's what a weird life. What a strange little life. Um,
Have you ever dreamed about releasing a new project or game that you haven't been doing yet? Like I dreamed about making a game about something else or something like this.
oh yeah, all right, but that's a great question. So yeah, I have something that I've barely scratched the surface on. Um, it's very much like have you played The Quiet Year, where you sit down and draw the map together?
Mm-hmm.
Similar to that, but more of a, and I know I hate saying it, but more of a LARP, like an IRL LARP that's mostly in your head. Um, so this sort of goes back to like the real world stuff that I want to do, that I'm kind of
Mm-hmm.
longing for. So that I'm hoping to like once the Morkborg action figure is in production, I should have more time at the end of the year to develop that, God willing. Um, but that is something I've been dreaming about, and I hope it's a very highly emotional game. Like I'm going for like super high emotion, similar to Ten Candles too.
Nice. Wow, very cool.
Yeah, that
If
would be.
you yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say that would be dreamy. That's all.
If you could live in a fictional setting, either from games or literature, movies, TV shows, whatever, like a fictional setting, world, universe, where would you live in, and who would you be in that universe?
Holy cow. Um, that's hard because like all the stuff I like is so bleak. Like I wouldn't want to be there. Um,
Well, I mean, it's fantasy. Like you could want to be like a, I don't know, an adventurer in Morkborg and die horribly. I don't know. But you can choose a cool place to live, but it's hard because like a lot of the stuff we really like, there's a lot of conflicts and dire peril, so everything
oh,
it will be kind of scary, right?
absolutely.
You can be like
I
a
gotta-
completely oblivious hobbit on Middle Earth. That can work, I guess.
well, so since I like the Hellboy BPRD universe so much, I can imagine being like a field agent with some sort of like not super powerful power, but like maybe I can um, like Johan from BPRD. He's the ghost inside the suit, so like he can uh, float through things and he can embody objects and stuff like that. I can imagine being a low to mid level field agent uh, on assignment somewhere not very cold in that universe. That would be pretty awesome. Not too much responsibility, a pension at the end of 30 years. Sounds great.
Yeah.
Does a
And
ghost person need a pension? I don't know. Do they even get one?
I don't know. Yeah. If you could have any superpower, what superpower would you choose to have, and what would be the first thing you would do with that?
Gosh, I mean, like I always think about that episode of this. I think it's This American Life, where it's like flying versus teleportation. I think it was.
Yeah,
Um,
those are the most popular ones. Yeah.
I'm gonna go more sinister. I would be like the teleporting bank robber like, by night. Like I'm 45 years old, I have a family, but no one knows that I can teleport, and I'm literally like uh, raiding
Yeah.
J.P. Morgan and kind of like a Robin Hood kind of deal. Not maybe enriching myself a little bit, but also doing good.
Yeah. Yeah. That could work. That could be like a show kind of, you know, Breaking Bad, like a middle-aged guy gets teleportation powers and starts, yeah, I'm gonna do Robin Hood, but starts screwing it up. That could
Yeah,
be
yeah,
a fun, weird show too.
yeah. That's it. We're rich, baby. Let's write it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I- if you could choose any weird and fictitious thing from fantasy, sci-fi, or whatever, from books, comics, games, anything, and make that thing real in our world, in our reality, what would you choose and why? And that can be, a faction, a location, an object, a weapon, energy source, anything like this.
Yeah. Well, I think about this quite a bit. Like we live in like 2024, and all the science fiction from like the 50s and 60s is so optimistic. It's like by the year 2020, we'll have flying cars, and no one will have to work, and all this stuff. And it's like
We will eat
income in
a pill, we'll have all the food we need and stuff like
right.
that.
Yeah, every problem is solved. And like, well, we're just never going to get there because income inequality and the way the systems are set up, it's just like it doesn't matter what great tech we have. Like, we're still mud people on the mud ball, and like we can't even solve those problems. It just really
Mm.
it really stinks. So like, I would love to answer your question. I would love to like have like a ring world space station up in space where anyone can just go up to and get off the mud ball and just evolve. Just forget about languages and forget about physicality and just sort of like,
Scarcity, yeah.
yeah, just fast forward our evolution off the mud ball because we literally can't solve the mud ball problem. And we're never gonna get anywhere because we're just like starving and trying to get our kids in the car without getting carjacked. Like the shit. What the hell? It's
Yeah.
just too hard. Um, yeah, I want a giant space station for all. Like anyone can go up there anytime they want by some sort of conveyor belt uh, elevator system, and just be
Yeah.
yourself. You can go up there and role play.
That would be great. Yeah.
Yeah.
And finally, the last question would be: do you remember the last time you felt really happy and grateful for being here and being alive? And if you do, can you share with us when was it, and then what was it that you were doing and experiencing?
Um, I mean, I hate to talk about kids again, but
That's great. That's the good stuff.
it is the good stuff. Yeah. Well, I'll share a little something. So, COVID was obviously hard for everybody in a number of ways. So, my wife was pregnant when COVID happened. We were like a month and a half, 2 months into it. COVID hit. We're all stressed out about that, and then we lost the baby. And it was early enough in the pregnancy where it wasn't like hugely emotional, but it was still pretty hard. And we had like no one to talk to. I mean, I didn't tell my parents. I think Mary probably told her parents, but we couldn't like go to friends' houses. It was just us at the house with Ivor, and it sucked. I mean, it was like really, it was harder than hard because we were already like terrified of COVID anyway. And, it was like March, April of COVID. So we like kind of sucked that up and like just didn't really process that. And then we got pregnant again, had our next son during COVID. And just that experience, like having that renewal, I guess, like even though it was still in the heart of the pandemic, like it was a really unreal feeling.
You made a new friends during the COVID pandemic.
Yeah,
so
that's great. And that was pretty great because you have one kid. It's usually like with every next kid, you're like, oh, here's another one, but it wasn't just another one, of course, but like it was like,
that's beautiful and
came out of all this
hard stuff. And I can't imagine what I have been through, but kind of a cycle as you a new beginning. And I think COVID was a reset for a lot of people, right? Too, it's hard to talk about that.
It is, but this is a great podcast. I'll tell you, you ask amazing questions, and I feel like I revealed stuff to you that I have never revealed to anyone. Two things: the thing about my parents being actually helpful for once, and the baby stuff. So,
well,
you got it out of me.
Thank you so much for the generosity and courage to share this, and I'm really grateful, and I think it makes us closer as both me and you as a friend. I really consider you as a friend. You're a great person, and I'm really grateful for you sharing this. But in being a podcast, we're kind of sharing with the community too. But as you said, like the community is a great thing, and we're all really grateful for you for everything that you do, and maybe learning a little bit more about you make us feel a little bit closer, and I don't know, grateful and more understanding of the stuff that you do too, because whether we want it or not, all those things infuse our work, even subconsciously, right? So so Justin, I'm really, really grateful for you for being here. Those were all the questions I had. And do you have any last message for the wonderful weirdos out there that are listening to us?
Yes. Despite being a mud person and living on this mud ball, I think that you're wonderful, and don't ever stop creating stuff. If you like to draw, just keep drawing. If you like to write, keep writing. It has brought me endless joy and kept me out of the mud jail. And just keep doing it. Like, seriously, just never give up, because creativity it's freedom. It's like, we talk about freedom in America, which is BS. Creativity is the real freedom.
Yeah. And even being, mud people in a mud ball, we can still make mud bricks, right? And we can build stuff, and we can, make a little house for other weird mud balls, hang out and play pretend for a while. So it's great. Yeah. Justin, can you take us out saying the catchphrase of the show? Keep it weird, everybody.
Keep it weird, everybody.
Thank you for listening to Weird Games and Weirder People. If you'd like to keep up with the show, please subscribe to be notified when we release new episodes. If you'd like to support us, please leave a review or head on to code-fi.com/WGNWP. See you next time, and remember, weird is the new wonderful.